What's going on, everybody? My name is Austin,
And I'm Josiah.
and we are the Super Cinema
Cinema
Bros, aka
Cinema.
the Super Cinema Blicky. Bros. What's going on, Josiah? How you doing?
Hey man, doing well, doing well. How you doing, Austin?
I'm doing all right. What movie do we have on the docket today?
We got Scorsese's new one, his new jam, Killers of the Flower Moon.
All right. So for this episode, I've been charged with giving a summary, and I haven't really said this to Josiah yet, but man, like this movie is 3.5 hours, but the description of it is incredibly simple and basic. Um, this movie is called Killers
Yeah.
of the Flower Moon, but if it were up to me, I would rename it to The Parasites of the Osage. This
Mm.
film
Mm-hmm.
revolves around the Osage Native American tribe in the state of Oklahoma, I believe.
Yeah.
And the movie starts with them uh, burying a ceremonial pipe, and then at like right in the first scene, you see some liquid bubbling up from the ground, and then like a geyser just shoots up, and it's
Mm.
oil,
Mm-hmm.
and you see
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of
That black
Osage
gold.
tribe members. Yeah, Texas tea, but not in Texas, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you just see them in this crazy, like slow motion shot, just dancing and hollering. You don't actually hear them, you just hear the music, and you see them dancing, just getting splashed, soaked in this oil, and this, this unrefined, bubbling brew that's shooting out of the ground. And essentially, there's a very quick montage, and you fast forward to the fact that they are now very wealthy from the oil that is on their land. And as a result of that oil, they
Very
are now
well.
allowed to, they're very wealthy. They are now allowed to participate in the broader economy in the state of Oklahoma. You could say they are allowed to participate in the white man's economy. And it makes them very wealthy. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
them get married, a lot of the women in particular get married to white men. And they have a thriving, bustling town, there's industries, and you see the title, basically one of the main characters, who's played by Leonardo DiCaprio. He has returned from World War I, I believe, and he goes to see his uncle. His uncle, who is played by Robert De Niro, is kind of the unofficial mayor of the town. He has all the connections. He is a white man himself, but he is embedded himself deep in the Osage community. He's even learned to speak their native language, and at least at the very beginning of the movie, he speaks very, very highly of them. This movie is the story of white folks in
Mm.
the early 1900s assimilating, matriculating into the Osage community. And what happens over the course of the movie is a bunch of people get murdered. Um, some men, a whole lot of women get murdered. And it's just kind of the story of how this is happening throughout time. Leonardo DiCaprio's character, he marries the other main character. They start a family. He begins to, live off of that wealth. And yeah, the story kind of slowly evolves or devolves into kind of a crime drama. And yeah, it just kind of shows you um, kind of some really ugly parts of American history and what happens to marginalized communities even when they are blessed with incredible wealth. And without going into any spoilers just yet, that's kind of what this story revolves around. Is there anything you would add to that, Josiah?
Hmm. Yeah, I would say that that's a good summary of the film. Um, And I guess the only thing I would add is like, yeah, as stated before, main character is by Leonardo DiCaprio. His name is Ernest, and yeah, the main actress lead is Molly, played by Lily Gladstone. Outside of that, yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into spoiling anything. Yeah, you gave the a good baseline for this film for what it is.
Hopefully, an adequate spoiler-free description in case anybody hasn't seen the movie yet. Now, with that said, here we go with the spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. If you have not seen the movie yet and you wish to watch it before you listen to our commentary, pause this, go watch the movie, and we'll see you in about 4 to 6 hours. All right, now that you've done that, let's get into it.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
let's see. Should we start with what we? You want to start with what we didn't like this time?
yeah, I kind of like trying to get that out of the way.
All right, so let's do that. I'll let you go
Mhm,
first, and then
mhm.
I'll chime in because I'm very interested
Yeah.
to hear what you have to say.
Mhm. So this film is a little bit. When I came out of the movie, it was difficult for me to, and even now to some degree, difficult for me to really judge this film. I was not sure. Okay, how much of this film is actual and factual? I know it's based off of a book that's based off of a real scenario that happened, and many of these characters are real as well. But I wonder, like, how much of the details actually are in line with what happened. And so I kind of have to separate the film into two camps. Like, one, if it's supposed to be telling a historical story, I don't really have the research to be able to judge the film from that standpoint. So I then have to go in the opposite direction of just kind of judging the film as a film itself, as a it's I hate to say it in a way, as a dramatized, maybe predominantly fictional story. Um, which I know it's supposed to be nonfiction, but there's no way that all the details went down exactly the way that it did, or maybe it did, but I haven't done that research. So just looking at it as a story, man, so it's kind of challenging. Some of my gripes are connected to like what I would want to see potentially in a film, and I think I'm able to put them ultimately to the side when I just understand, ah, man, the type of film that this is. It's classic in a lot of ways. Scorsese doing, you hear of the story of a hero of a thousand faces, and that's kind of like the backbone of almost like every story out there. And I feel like Scorsese's films are like the hitman of a thousand pastas. It's like it's in a lot of ways. Most of these stories wind up being about dirty group of and human individuals that are trying to make it as best as they can by screwing over a bunch of other people and trying to prop up the people within their tribe and within their group. Look, I know tale as old as time, but man, as much as he wants to complain about various different types of media out there and movies, I don't want to get too deep into it. You already know what's going on that front. Yeah, he's making the same stories or very 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 similar stories, over and over. Um, but this is, yeah, yet again trying to separate the historical actual nonfiction elements, and I think there's a lot of value to like those stories also. But um, so classic Scorsese doing a depressing film that is cautionary tale, like that's like super reductionist. So, man, I'm struggling to say like what's bad about this film, because I don't know that this film is necessarily bad. Yeah, there are. I'll think about some potential flaws here and there. It's not necessarily bad. It's just like, man, this is sad kind of bring your soul down kind of a story. And oh, you know what? I did think, okay, this is a unique kind of situation, but did you wind up catching the trailer for this movie?
I remember seeing of the trailer on YouTube. I saw it one time and I was like, okay,
Mhm. Mhm.
Apple is producing this, and it's
Yeah.
Scorsese and it's Leonardo DiCaprio. So, um, it's one
Yeah.
of those movies where like the trailer itself is probably going to get nominated for an Academy Award. One of those. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
totally.
I did see it once. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was like, oh man, I'm about to get my heart ripped out and stomped on for three
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah. Mhm. Alright, so I asked you that question because from the trailer, and my wife will corroborate this also, this is what she got. It seemed to be that Ernest Leonardo's character was going to be starting on the side of the villainous characters, and then at some point through the movie, turning and like fighting against them. Now, it's like it's a bit of a difficult thing to say, like, oh, this is bad, this is wrong, that the movie wound up being different from that. In my opinion, I was frustrated that the film turned out different from that. Do I feel like I was led astray? I think to some degree I felt like I was led astray because if man, so I like being surprised on the one hand, but on the other hand, this being like you're saying, like 3 hours and some change or whatever, walking into this film, like the trailer, I think shouldn't be somewhat deceptive because then I was sitting there for the entire movie, kind of waiting for something to happen, and the moments wouldn't happen really. And then by the end of the film, I was like, dang, he didn't wind up pulled the wool over my eyes with that trailer. Did I enjoy my time? I think I did, but at the same time, was like, I might not have watched this film had I known it was going to go down this path. Like the promise of what could have been from that trailer, like allowed me to, one like drove me to want to go and get into the film. So yeah, that's one of the things, but it's like 50-50. I'm 50-50 frustrated about that, 50-50 actually somewhat cool with that. Now I'd say, okay, thinking about what would be my number one most frustrating thing in the film then. I think it would have come down to the character Molly, and I feel as if she didn't have as much agency like in the scenario as she could have. Maybe she was somebody that was like walked over in a lot of ways, or oh man, she had so much power, but then she also didn't do much. She had moments where she did stuff, but she had a lot of sections of the film where she was letting it happen, or like turning an eye, or not being aware. And she was such an intelligent character from what I could tell from the very beginning when she was introduced. Um, the number of things wind up happening along the way, and I'm like, Molly, like, are you gonna see? Are you gonna like what's going on here? Like, why aren't you making any changes? Why aren't you acknowledging or confronting? And like, so yeah, that's probably the biggest thing that was a frustration for me. Um, and then I guess along the lines, yeah, yet again with the trailer situation, or the Ernest character, yeah, he just he had all these moments where it seemed like he was truly pondering, considering what was happening and the ramifications of his decisions, and going along with the decisions of his like uncle and everybody. Just kept on that, which that's why I'm saying it's probably my personal frustration, but I can understand that's the story that Marty wanted to tell. So he can tell the story he wants to tell, and then anybody can wind up loving that story. And then on the flip side, we could wind up being frustrated with the elements of that story. So those are my things.
All right, very interesting. Yeah, before I forget the thought, like it's almost like he didn't go full Scorsese in a couple areas that I thought he was going to. That doesn't make it bad or wrong. It's just like I just felt he was going to go in a certain direction, and I don't even know if this is something I didn't like. But it just kind of made me like anxious because I was expecting a certain thing and it didn't happen. For example, there's a scene where Molly, she's in her bed and she, like her mother earlier in the movie, sees an owl coming into her
Mm-hmm.
room,
Mm-hmm.
and the owl in her mother's case was basically a signal or a symbol of imminent demise, imminent
Yeah.
near term death. You're gonna die
Mm-hmm.
soon. And so you see it in probably the latter half of the movie or latter third of the movie because she is actively being poisoned by Ernest. And
Hmm.
it's like, all right, well, if you're gonna show me that, then either she needs to die or something needs to happen. But it didn't really happen that way. Um, I mean, as you find out, she doesn't die until many years later. So I'm like, all right.
Hmm.
So, and then the other thing was, um, when when King, De Niro's character, asked him to basically sign his inheritance away from the Osage because he was married, and we got to make sure it stays in the family. He said. I mean, I was waiting for him to basically get whacked as soon as he signed that thing. I'm like, you're signing your own death warrant. You know what I'm saying? Your death
Definitely.
certificate, I should say.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that didn't happen either. I'm like, all right,
No.
well, clearly this is not Casino. Clearly this is not Goodfellas. Clearly
Hmm.
this is not The Irishman, and that's fine. It doesn't have to be those movies. So yeah, that was just interesting. I don't know if I would go so far as to say I didn't like it, but because you said it, it brought it to my mind, and it is something that kind of gave me a certain level of anxiety as I was watching the movie because I'm waiting for
Hmm.
something to happen that didn't happen. All right,
Yeah,
so
along that lines, I was surprised Molly got all the way to the president also.
yeah, yeah, I was like, wow, I'm going to Washington. Oh, Mr. President, save us. I'm like, all right. I mean, maybe, hey, maybe it did happen. Now,
That's why,
like
yeah,
you,
maybe the historical
yeah,
element. Hmm.
yeah. Now, like you, I did not read the book. I'm not familiar with the source material or the historical account. So I'm taking what I see in the movie at face value. Um, now, okay, now into what I specifically didn't like. All right. The first thing, and this is a weird thing, and I know this might just be an Austin thing, but uh, clearly this movie was shot with like airy cinema cameras. And okay, I have to kind of decouple this because this bleeds into a lot of things that I liked, and I don't want to talk about that just yet. But
Mm.
there's a specific thing that airy cameras do, where it's like when in these like dramatic close-ups, where it's like the fall off on the depth of field, it kind of makes everything else blurry, and it kind of creates like this dream-like ambiance to the scene. And just for my taste, this is just an Austin thing. This is a really weird nitpick. I would just like I would just like the focus to be sharper. I don't need so much bokeh on these scenes. You know what I mean? I would love it
Mhm.
just a real sharp lens and it just kind of
Yeah.
brings it into focus. I don't want it to feel kind of ethereal and dreamlike on those close-up shots. Again, they use the top of the line lenses, top of the line film cameras, and it does look beautiful. Again, this is a very slight nitpick.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
uh, the next thing for me is kind of a like and dislike. Like I like the music that they chose, but I didn't feel like a lot of the music that they chose was period appropriate.
Mm.
It felt like some of the music came from like 60 years later or something like that.
Mm. Yeah.
So that kind of took me out of it a little bit. I think in the very beginning, the opening sequence, where you have this beautiful slow motion of them dancing and in the oil and stuff. I
Yeah.
I could have sworn they were like wild thing. You make my it felt like that. That wasn't the song that they used, but it definitely felt
Yeah.
like that. I'm like, that's not 1923 music, you know? I don't know. So that
Mhm.
either do it like a
Yeah, yeah.
do a traditional film score, you know, or have something, like um, I'm thinking of for now. I'm thinking of that one episode of South Park where Butters is he's he's dancing to a song. It's like his old timey song. I got something in my front pocket for you, but like something that's like time period specific to that time. Like what would they be listening to? What would they be
Man.
getting all hype and what would they be getting all like amped up and hyphy to in 1923 or whatever it was? I believe it was just
Dude.
after World War One.
Yeah.
And so okay, so yeah,
Mm.
some of the music was like just a little bit off. Not that it was thematically off or took you out, but it's like this is not what they would be listening to during that time period,
I get it. I get it.
So
Mhm.
so 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 there's that. Uh what you're saying about Molly in terms of like she was like this kind of passive observer of things that were happening to her life in some cases. Like she was just kind of like almost like near clairvoyant. Like she just had a sense of things, but was just kind of standing quietly and letting things happen. It's like sometimes she was super proactive. We hired a private investigator, you know, but then sometimes she was just kind of like standing around. And yeah, I felt that the chemistry between her and Ernest, number one, like I've seen when a movie wants to make Leonardo DiCaprio look handsome, like Great Gatsby or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood or Titanic or, fill in the blank Leonardo DiCaprio movie, Wolf of
Mm-hmm.
Wall Street. Like they know how to make him look handsome, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've all seen that like Great Gatsby meme of him like lifting up his champagne glass with that big
Yep.
DiCaprio smile. He
Mm-hmm.
looks so freaking homely in this movie. And listen, that is a testament to his acting and his ability to like frump his face up. And they clearly gave him some like some dental implants or whatever because his
Yeah.
teeth look kind of jacked up. And so like
Uh-huh.
listen, this is again, this dovetails with what I do like, and I'll get into the acting later. But
Yeah.
it's like because they're talking about, oh well, he is handsome. I'm like, no, he's not. Listen, listen, I'm like, this dude looks this dude looks like Mad Magazine, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm,
He's got like
mhm.
this goofy, like simpleton smile. I'm like, my goodness. I mean, again, if you wanted to sell him as like a good looking, like white guy, in the eyes of these Osage women, then I don't know. I just feel like they found a weird way to do it. So that kind of took me out. I'm like, you think this dude is handsome? Like, all right, whatever. So, just because of
It's
like,
cute.
again, and the only reason I say that is because like Leonardo DiCaprio went through what appear to be great lengths to like uglify himself, kind of. He's
I
just kind
think
of
so.
simple and he's
I think so.
and like again, that's a testament to his acting. We'll get to that in a minute, but like, so that
Mhm.
was weird.
He was like,
Um,
I'm eat whatever I want right now because I gotta look
yeah,
frumpy." Uh-huh.
that was weird. And I mean, again, my main takeaway from this movie is like, there's not a whole lot to take away. This is just kind of like a straightforward story. There was no like twist or turns. There was no flashback to what actually happened for the most part. And the
Mhm.
flashback, when they do show you what happened, is like, well, okay, when the private investigator, you find out how he died, and it was actually Ernest and one of his uncle's goons. Like, okay, that was
Mhm.
interesting. That was
Yeah.
probably the most interesting part of the movie in terms of like, oh, so Leonardo DiCaprio, he's not one of the good guys. He's not going to have a redemption arc. He's not going to
Mhm.
reform in any way. Nah, he's a dirtbag too. I'm totally cool with that, by the way. But the way that they showed it was really interesting. Um,
Mhm.
so that was like probably the best part of that. But yeah, the movie is just really straightforward. And when a movie is that straightforward and there's not that many twists or turns, for it to be almost 3 hours and 30 minutes, my goodness, that's a long movie. Um, Full disclosure, I'm getting over a cough or a cold. So when I went into the movie, I had kind of a little coughing respiratory hack attack. So I lost about 5 minutes of movie in like the first hour.
Okay.
So it was just before she got the insulin. Right
Yeah.
around that time, there were some parts that I kind of miss where they're going and trying to find the guy that does the dynamite stuff. Kind of like right before that, I
Okay.
missed a little bit of it. So if there's something crazy that happened there and you don't hear me talking about it, that's why. Um, so
Hmm.
yeah, it's 3 hours. And when I think about that, okay, I'm pulling this way, way out of left field. But when we were kids, there was a movie called, I believe it was Indecent Proposal, right? And
Yeah.
I think it's like Demi Moore and like millionaire offers to sleep with a dude's wife for $1 million, and then the trailer, there's like this seductive like scandalous scene where she's like almost naked, but she's in a bed um, rolling around like just stacks of money, like something out of the Wolf of Wall Street, and she's like
Yeah.
rolling around. Apparently, there's like a fan on, there's like a strong breeze coming through the window, and it's like supposed to look all seductive and stuff, and she's just
Yeah.
kind of rolling around in this money. It's like as like the aftermath of what she's done, right? This is just in the trailer.
Mhm.
And I have to believe that like that visual is what I think of minus the nudity and the female part, but like on the cutting room floor, most people, most directors, most editors leave a lot of stuff on the cutting room floor. There's even an expression, oh, it was left on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like Martin Scorsese saw that stuff on the cutting room floor and just started rolling around. And oh my gosh, I got to put this in the movie. Oh my gosh, just rolling around, savoring in
It's
all this
all
footage
good. This
that
is
could be put.
amazing.
Yeah.
Let's get it back in the movie.
There's an extra good 10, 15, 20 minutes in here. And he's just rolling
Yep.
around and it just. And
He's
so,
like, wait, if I cut 5 minutes, we can get an extra play at every theater every day. Nah. I gotta put this scene in. I gotta keep this.
No. Martin Scorsese, he goes right, and then like wherever like the Technicolor or whatever studio where they're doing the actual film editing and they're cutting it. Let's just pretend that they're using film, right? Let's just pretend for the sake of this analogy, right? So like he goes and cuts it, right? And he's like, oh, okay. All right, well, I'll see you guys later. And then he moonlights as the janitor at that editing facility, goes in with his foxtail and the pan. Ooh, I can use some of this. Oh, I get some of this. Oh yeah, there's some good footage in there. This man,
He's over there using Scotch tape, taping the film
oh
back
my
together.
goodness. Dude, you ever seen that meme of Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where he's in the mailroom and there's like all these lines connected. He's like trying to unlock this conspiracy. That's Scorsese in his bedroom with all the film that like he just refuses to let go. I mean,
no. Yeah.
there is a flawless, perfect 2 to 2 hours, 25-minute movie that's in this 3 hour, 25-minute monstrosity of a film. There's like a streamlined, just flawless 2 hour 15-minute movie in the midst of this, like, I mean, if he had just chiseled away, but like that's not Scorsese.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Unless we are wrong, and God help us, like there was 5 hours and he had to cut like an hour and a half of it. God help us all, because I don't have enough space in my bookshelf for that many Blu-ray special edition. Like that's gonna be like the Old Testament. My goodness.
You know that's the case, though. You know that's really the case.
Oh my gosh.
This movie.
All right, Leo. In this scene, I need you to grimace more and give me that awkward grimacing smile. Yeah. Drive around in that dune buggy you were driving around for a few more minutes and just make some small talk with Molly. It's like, all right, bro. And then the last thing that I'll say, because like
face the whole movie.
Yeah. Yeah, he's making a weird face the whole movie. I mean, the way that he could stay in character, God knows how many weeks or months they did in like the principal shooting for this movie. But yeah, the last thing I'll say is at the very end. Okay, this is a half like, half dislike. Yeah. At the very end of the movie kind of dramatically shifts, and it turns into like, was it like a Red Stripe cigarette commercial, or like radio commercial, like old timey radio commercial?
Oh yes, uh-huh.
Now, that's interesting. That's an interesting way to like tie it all up, because like otherwise it would have just been like title cards or whatever, like just kind of like, in some movies it just goes to black and you just have like the white Times New Roman text, kind of like letting you read about what happened. A lot of movies do that, for like historical pieces and stuff like that, historical dramas, and they just let you read it because it's the end of the movie and that's that. He chose to like do something really kind of creative, so I want to credit him for his creativity. But it's so kind of like zany, because like you see all the people in like the old, Radio City Hall, Radio City, New York City, and the people that are on the stage making all the sound effects for the radio show, which is super clever. But it's like, what? And then to top it all off, at the very end of the movie, the last narrator is Mr. Martin Scorsese himself. So he puts himself into the movie. And again, it's totally appropriate. He's not, other than the fact that it's Martin Scorsese, he's not trying to bring too much attention to himself. But it's just a weird decision to kind of put yourself in the movie like that. So I don't know how I feel about that. The whole, in behind the scenes of a radio show presentation of what happened is interesting, but it's also distracting. And so again, it's kind of half like, half dislike, because I'm like, yeah, I don't know how else he would have ended it, but that was a very deliberate choice. And I mean, in this case, it's very time period appropriate. You know, that's how a radio
Mhm.
show sounded in the 1920s, or whenever it was filmed, or whenever the time period is supposed to represent. It's just a weird choice at the same time. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of what those are the things that I did not like. Um, yeah, just some, and to be clear, most of these are nitpicks, except for the
Yeah.
last one, like the
Mhm.
cameras and the music. These are nitpicks. These aren't
Mhm. Mhm.
these don't ruin the movie for me, but it's like, yeah, I kind of wish they'd done a little bit different. That's all. Any final thoughts before we get to the stuff that we did
Yeah.
like?
Uh, yeah. Final thoughts regarding that last scene. You know, I'm the first to admit that there's themes and messages and el- uh, elements of movies and stories that wind up going over my head. This might be one of those scenes to some degree, but I think it's supposed to be kind of like representative of I think maybe when the story did potentially get popular at one time. Um, but I think maybe ultimately it's maybe it's supposed to be a reflection of how this Osage people were used at the time. They were used and abused at the time, and then even later on, even the accounts of their stories, it's like using them for entertainment purposes. Which, some degree, if he's trying to say that, like his movie as well is doing the same thing. So, but yeah, it definitely was an interesting. It was like I both liked and disliked that someone as well. Yeah. All right, man. Well,
All right, let's get into
so
it.
at the
Let's
very
what do we
least,
like?
yeah. Let's transition that to definitely, as we wind up saying all the time. This movie did not, most of the time, wind up for me committing not at all. It didn't commit the cardinal sin of being boring, and that included some of the interesting choices made by the end of the movie and deceiving me as far as the trailers of the movie actually execution wound up going. Do you want to open us up with what you did like about the movie, or you want me to go for it?
I'll start this time.
Okay.
Let's see. So, despite my small nitpick on like the specific lens selection of some of the close-ups, the cinematography of this film is incredible. The camera work is brilliant. The way that scenes are framed. This is a thing that I'm seeing a lot more in movies. This reminded me of actually John Wick 4 in terms of like some of the
Yeah, I
camera
was
work
thinking that.
and some of the framing of shots.
Hmm.
It's not new. This is I mean, there have been large format, big giant film, big giant scenic scenes, goodness, that's terrible. Big giant scenes with a lot of just visual extravagance. Going back to like Ben Hur and some of the older movies, these wide format shots, and they look amazing. I think it's almost as good from the cinematography and the camera work as something like John Wick 4, which I think just did an exquisite job. This is kind of up there.
Hmm. Mhm.
Uh, some of these shots just look amazing. And again,
Yeah.
some of the close ups, despite the fact that I wish it was a little bit sharper, these close ups look amazing. And the set pieces are incredible in this movie. The costumes, the production design, all of that stuff looks like super authentic. It looks real. It looks like they are in the 1920s. Oh, this is one thing I meant to mention this in our creator review. You guys go listen to that next after you listen to this one.
Definitely.
One thing that modern films do that irritates the crap out of me is when they try to digitally create the vintage footage, vintage film look,
Yeah.
and it just
Hmm.
looks like super artificial and plastic
Yeah.
and like modern in a bad way. You
Mhm.
remember in the creator that archival footage they were trying to show you about like the innovation in like artificial intelligence that was supposed to be from the 60s, but like it just looked so plastic and fake. It didn't look like it didn't look like canister film footage. This movie did a really good job of like when something was black and white, it looked like it was shot in like with an 8mm wind up crank camera. Um, that they did a
Yeah.
really good
Yeah.
job. Like in the very
Mhm.
beginning, they kind of show like a little montage scene of people taking pictures. Oh, and that's another thing when they show like, oh man, this is him when he was married 40 years ago, and it looks like it's like digitally photoshopped, and then they just put like a sepia black and white film over it, and it doesn't look like an old picture at all in these modern movies. Oh, that gets under my skin.
Yeah,
But
it's
like they would
terrible.
show you pictures, like even Molly, she's like, she's like central in a couple of these photographs that they take, and they look like real photographs.
It did, yeah. Mhm.
I think this is the result of Martin Scorsese being old enough to remember what these things actually look like. And if you showed him what they did in The Creator in that first scene, he would have been disgusted with it. He's like, no, 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 we're gonna find an old camera and we're gonna film it correctly.
Yeah. Mhm.
We're not gonna fake, we're not gonna fake old footage, old film footage. We're gonna find some old
Mhm.
stock and then
Mhm.
convert it to whatever we need to for the purpose of the movie.
Yeah.
So all that to say, the cinematography, set design, costume design, all those things are fantastic. Everything feels lived in. It feels like, it's got some grit and grime on it. People have lived in this space. It didn't feel like sterile or vacant like some movies do, especially these modern movies. A lot of them just like they have no sense of time and what a place looks like when people have spent time in it. You know what I mean? Um,
I do.
so that was
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So
It
fantastic
didn't
job
have
on
that
that.
set look
Uh,
to it.
yeah. So that's good. The acting is phenomenal. There's going to be a bunch of Oscar nominations. I would be surprised if De Niro didn't get a Best Supporting Actor nod, if Leonardo DiCaprio didn't get a Best Actor nod. Um, yeah, I mean everybody. All the supporting cast was fantastic. Molly, I'm sorry, what's her name? She played Molly.
Yeah, Lily Gladstone.
Yeah, Lily Gladstone. She did a fantastic job. Like it looked like she was about to die. Like I mean, she sold like I'm being poisoned and it's killing me and I'm about to die. Like she sold me on that.
Oh,
And
definitely.
so,
Mhm.
listen, as awkward as I felt that the initial interactions of Leonardo DiCaprio, of Ernest and Molly were when he's just driving her around,
Mhm.
like sometimes people are awkward, she's like, "Oh, you talk too much." She's like, "No, I don't." Da 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 da. And then she says something in Osage in the Osage language, and he's like, "Oh, that must have been Indian for like handsome devil." And she laughs, and
Yep.
you know, all of that felt pretty, pretty spot on, pretty authentic. And so, again, this is a Scorsese movie, and I think that Martin Scorsese has an amazing talent for communicating his vision to the actors and actresses
Mhm.
and really kind of
Yeah.
conveying the sense of what he's feeling and what he wants to see and telling them what their motivation is and getting masterful performances out of everybody involved. I mean, some of these folks, I don't think were actually like trained actors or actresses. I think some of those folks from the Osage community, from the Osage tribe, and from some of the other tribes, I think some of them were just kind of like playing themselves. But even in playing yourself, like there's still a talent and a skill to do that in a way that's not wooden and perfunctory and overly self-aware. You know what I'm saying? And so whatever he does and whatever he communicates, he does so in expert fashion. And so I think the direction is fantastic in this movie.
Yes. Mhm.
Um, and apparently, I stayed and watched the credits. It's a very calming experience because it's just like sounds of like crickets in the outdoors.
Yeah.
It's very quiet and very calming. And apparently, Industrial Light and Magic provided special effects. I don't know what they were, But I mean,
I
if
think
they
some of the
provided special
racing
effects,
scene maybe had some special effects, or at least
which
the
ones,
scenes
which
where,
scenes?
not the racing, but the scene where the people are like driving their cars down the street. I feel like there was maybe some around there, and then maybe some of like the fires and stuff.
Man, you could have fooled me. Hey, listen, that is a hallmark. That is a telltale sign of fantastic special effects.
Yeah,
You don't even notice it's there.
yeah,
It just becomes whatever it needs to be, and you
mhm,
don't even realize you're watching special effects.
yeah. The
So,
blown up house
w-
probably too, but yeah, 100% agree. Uh huh.
yeah. So part. I mean, between coordinating with Scorsese and getting the right shots so that they can do whatever they need to do, um, you know, and be completely like inconspicuous about it, if that's the right word, if I'm using that the right way, then my hat's off to ILM.
Mm-hmm.
They did a great job.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see them in the credits. I was like, oh snap! Whatever y'all did a great job because I didn't even notice
Mhm.
it.
They did.
And so, yeah, the sound mixing was good. I am ever more appreciative of movies where I can hear the dialogue. For goodness sakes, like now, in
Yeah.
fairness, there wasn't a whole lot of music in this movie, and there's not a whole lot of special effects or sound effects, I should say. So there was really no excuse to not be able to hear them. But we've all seen a Christopher Nolan movie
You
that
know.
is otherwise fantastic,
Hmm.
except you can't hear what the people are saying.
You'd be
So
surprised, man. You'd be surprised. Sometimes they're just talking too low or they're jumbling their words together, even though there's not much sound effects and stuff
right,
going on. Like there's a way to mess that up.
right. So for Mr. Scorsese to um to buck that trend, I'm eternally grateful. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
so those, I mean, again, basically all the fundamentals of what makes a movie a competent movie were all done masterfully.
Yeah, I was talking
Um,
to a director friend of mine, and I was asking him, I was like, man, yeah, how do you really gauge and judge the directing of something? Because it changes from film to film. Directors get way too much credit for cinematography sometimes, and acting and the story and all that stuff and writing. And yeah, he was saying like, well, honestly, the director, like their responsibility is to make sure that the entire film like lands and hits in a way that is called for, for that production. So yeah, thinking about that, still general and broad, but I agree very much so. Yeah, that he landed this the story came through, the acting came through. Like there wasn't anything in particular that was like thrown out of the movie. I think the vibes and everything for all the different important beats and moments in the movie wound up happening. So yeah, I agree with you.
yeah, I found Brendan Fraser's performance to be particularly a special treat. He almost sounded like a Southern Baptist pastor, reverend, when he was talking,
Mm-hmm.
especially when Ernest walks into the room with all the white town folks, and they're all basically telling him not to snitch on his uncle, and he's like, he's basically, well, he's not base. I mean, he's very specifically telling Ernest to lie. Oh, they hit you. Oh, they struck you, and they abused you. Like
Mm-hmm.
he was. It was almost like he was preaching a sermon,
Mm-hmm.
and just the way he performed that, I
Mm-hmm.
thought, I thought that was like, it cracked me up because I've been in church services where a pastor talks like that,
Yeah.
and for a lawyer to talk that way to encourage somebody to engage in outright dirt,
Yep.
in outright slime ball behavior.
Yeah.
Something
Mm-hmm.
about that juxtapositioning, whether that was Scorsese's intended goal or not, a lawyer who's talking like a pastor and like speaking in a way to get him to basically commit perjury.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And and he was almost like the serpent in Eve's ear talking to him. Oh, they're not going to keep their promises to you. Oh, they're going to lie. And De Niro was doing a lot of that too. Yeah. The last thing that I'll say about what I liked about the movie, I like how, I mean, and listen, I don't think anybody's going to accuse this movie, a Martin Scorsese movie, of being woke. Go woke, go broke.
Mm.
God help us all. I don't think anybody's going to level that criticism against him in this movie. Number one, because this is a period piece. This is based on a true story, as I understand. It's based on a book that's based on a true story. And so it's a period piece, right? Um, where we are right now in terms of the culture and these embarrassingly stupid culture wars. Um, Nobody's going to accuse, at least to my knowledge, no one's going to accuse Martin Scorsese of all people of being quote unquote woke. But this movie is a very accurate portrayal of systematic white supremacy, right? Like I said at the beginning, I think a more apt title, if it were up to me, would be The Parasites of the Osage, instead of The Killers of the Flower Moon. It shows what has happened historically, where you have turn of the century white folks who smelled money. And, in the beginning of the movie, De Niro's character, he speaks so highly of the Osage. Oh, they're the salt of the earth. Oh, they're the most amazing people ever, right?
Man.
And yet,
Yep.
yeah, and yet, while he's saying all that, oh, if you marry one of them, oh man, they'll full blood sage, you'll get the full blah 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 blah. Right? Do you like women? Do you like do you like Indian women or whatever he
Mhm.
was saying?
You like
And
red?
yeah. And so like it's so the movie is in the movie it's very subtle because like for probably the good first half of the movie, you're thinking De Niro's like a good guy,
Hmm.
right? A good guy with a little bit of an agenda, you know, a little bit of get in where you fit in, get yours, hit a lick. You know what I mean? A little bit of that, but
Mm-hmm.
overall,
Mm-hmm.
on the whole trajectory, he's more good than bad. And then there's a certain point at which you realize that's completely not the case,
Yeah.
and then it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole thing is like very unjarring. It's jarringly unjarring.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like some people only believe that racism is racism if it comes with a white hood and a flaming cross on your front lawn.
Man.
It has to be so
So
explicit and so
blatant.
deliberate and
Yeah.
so direct. It has to be so blatant.
Yep.
Otherwise, I don't know. What are you talking about? All lives matter or something stupid like that.
Mm-hmm.
This shows like, no, they
That's not the case.
will marry you. They will have children with you. They
Mm-hmm.
will matriculate and assimilate into your community.
Yep.
And like all these dudes, they were all like freeloaders. Like before, or no, excuse me, after Ernest got married and he was no longer driving his now wife, like what was he doing all day? Other than like doing dirt for his uncle, you
He
know,
really was. Yeah.
murdering people for his uncle. Like he was
Or
just like a
playing pool.
homebody,
Yeah, being lazy.
playing pool, getting drunk. Like he was doing a whole lot of nothing
Mm-hmm.
and living high on the hog. He didn't earn any of this stuff, right? And yet felt and not just him, but like these white folks in this movie, which is reflective of that time period, like they didn't earn any of that money, and yet they felt entitled to all of it, right? And you could see the projection because they were like turning around in some parts of the movie, like, oh man, like you didn't earn this money, you got this money because you guys happen to live with oil or whatever. That was the implication. They were insinuating, oh, I mean, you guys aren't, you guys are really just kind of lazy, just living off the land that you guys hit the jackpot.
Mm.
But that's exactly what they were doing. That's exactly what they were doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
This crazy projection. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, they showed film footage, like the Fox News reel of like what happened during the Tulsa race riots, the Tulsa massacre.
Yeah, and they
And
had the KKK showing up in here too.
yeah, and so
I was like, man,
and,
if you want to make it even more depressing, the movie, like push into those stories, man. Jeez.
right, but I think that's kind of the point. This is like
Yeah.
this is just what was going on in that society.
Yeah.
There were a couple scenes where it was a little bit on the nose, where like, oh, you guys are savages, right?
Mm-hmm.
While they're in their house enjoying their food, yet they still have the nerve as they're leeching off of them to call them savages and to call,
Mhm.
it's like it's wild.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
wild. But that's like this is America. Like this is what America does, right? And again, like this movie does a phenomenal job of very subtly and gradually over time just showing you like just the, I would say like the heart of darkness, which is the soul
Mhm.
of man, the depths of depravity of what people will do
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
for the love of money, you know. Um, you will
Yeah.
learn their
A
language.
different face.
Ernest, yeah,
Yeah, just like a different face that evil winds up taking. It's not the.
yeah,
That's one of my favorite things of the movie here. Myself
yeah.
too. Yeah, it's just like it's not the you know an obvious mask of evil personified. Like it's the more insidious and kind that smile at you and shake your hand and stab you in the back whenever it can. Mm-hmm.
Right. I think one of my very favorite scenes, this might be my favorite scene in the movie, is right at the end where Ernest he testifies against his uncle and then he's in the kind of the waiting room and his wife comes in and he's like, I've got this my soul is clean now, because he finally admitted the stuff.
Yeah.
My soul is clean, almost as if like we can just move past this now, even though he was directly responsible for his in-laws murder. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
His sister-in-law,
Yeah.
or he knew exactly who was responsible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was completely complicit in it. But
Yeah.
then, Molly asks him, what did you put in the insulin? What was in there, right?
Yeah.
And despite the fact that he had just cleaned his soul, as he said, he was so-called an honest man now. At the end of the day, when it really came down to it, he couldn't tell the truth. He was still a liar. He was still a scoundrel. And I thought I was brilliant, And she knew exactly what he was in that moment, and she just got up and walked away. And I feel like in that scene, for all my frustrations about her just seemingly kind of just floating around,
Mm-hmm.
just kind of passively experiencing things and letting things happen. This time she got up and she walked out.
You did the right thing. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, the right thing, but like she just knew this guy was a scumbag and that he just completely betrayed her. And even in that, as you're watching it, like he's almost trying to convince himself, yeah, it's just to calm her down, just to calm her down.
Mm-hmm.
And then and King, his uncle, is like, yeah, it's just to calm her down. Everybody knows that this is poison that's designed to kill her.
Yeah.
They know it. He knows it. He was willing to kill his wife, even though he loved her. He was conflicted. You know what I mean? I was hoping that at some point in the movie he would like, no, I'm not gonna do this anymore. He's gonna throw it away. Nah, he never really did that.
Mm-mm.
Um, he only had a change of heart once his youngest child died. And he just had a breaking point. Like he just couldn't lie anymore. But the being unable to lie obviously doesn't make you a good person. It just makes you, and possibly less of a scumbag. But like, yeah, you know, just when you thought, when just when the movie was almost about to leave you feeling like, we're supposed to believe he's a good person. He did all this bad stuff just because he admitted to it. When it really mattered, when it was really time for him to really, really admit what he had done, he couldn't do it.
Mm-mm. Nope.
And I thought it was brilliant that how that scene played out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
that was an awesome scene. Definitely.
yeah,
And I think man, what's also crazy is how the account later on during the radio story when they're saying what happens later on, how his uncle actually comes back into the society and continuing to proclaim himself as a friend. He's writing letters to those sage people, you know, trying to convince them that he's still their friend. I'm like, man, that is so twisted. This guy is
yeah.
insane.
People believe their own press. They will believe their own lie
Mm-hmm.
and live it like it's the truth.
Yeah,
It's wild.
it
It is
really is.
wild how
Yeah,
twisted a person can be. Yeah.
it is. So yeah, so the things that I wound up enjoying this movie, yeah, all the stuff that you're saying. This film was it was entertaining to watch. It very much was. Like I like. like I said, I liked them both, but didn't like that Ernest did not step up, and be and attempt to be the hero for his wife and for his family and for the people. Um, Man, yeah, the fact that he just kept on going down that path, kept on making decisions, was deceiving himself all along the way, and man, he just was a fool. That's probably my favorite thing in the movie, and like just how dumb so many of the people were in this film. Like they were able to still operate in life and do different things, but they were so genuinely stupid. And I think it was like executed and acted in such a good way throughout the film. Like it was massively entertaining. My favorite character of the film is the that outlaw guy Blackie Thompson. When Ernest first goes up to him, they're like he's at some camp hiding away or whatever, and he's proposing that he do this dirty job for him. He just looks like your most classic villainous character from a western story, hardened criminal. I thought he was gonna like threaten Ernest. He turns out to be a fool, an idiot that also is chasing after money, but he's willing to do such like low to base things for money. And yeah, these people from top to bottom were manipulating people under them to do the dirty work continuously. And even though like several layers of these people were idiots themselves, they somehow still were able to convince the dumber idiot to do a job, a dirty job, and take the fall, which then made it fun on the opposite end when Blackie showed up and he had made a deal with the FBI, and Ernest was there, lying. And then Blackie walks to the door and he's just like totally, totally stunned and is trying to figure out his way out of it, but knows there's no way. And then he convinces himself that just because he asked them to step out of the room, that he's able to have like a personal conversation with this guy and devise a new plan, as if, yeah, just not being aware that they're able to still listen in on the conversation. And he's like divulging, yeah. I just love how massively dumb all these characters, so many of these characters are in this film, and yet they think themselves, some of them more than others think themselves more intelligent than they are. But man, yeah, it's just like I told you, this film, it is watching a train crash in slow motion, but like that still can be entertaining to watch. Um, did I walk out of the film frustrated and depressed somewhat? I did. I did. Like I think that's somewhat gonna wind up happening when you wind up just being told a dour, depressing story. But it wasn't just that. There was at least a fun, and in fact, at several points of the film, it did directly remind me of the video game series Red Dead Redemption. I was like, I'm just watching a Red Dead Redemption storyline here, where these stupid outlaws are crafting and scheming and banding together to pull off, this or that heist or this or that wool over somebody, and yet, yeah, yet again, they think they're the smartest, most intelligent people in the world, but from the outside, you just see how stupid they are and like what they're doing. It's just it was a lot of fun watching that. Let's see what else. What else did I wind up enjoying? Man, I mean the tragedies that happened in this film were truly like, man. There was a point in the film where, yeah, when Ernest was just making bad decision after bad decision, and it became clear that he wasn't going to be changing his ways. I did wind up looking at the phone, my phone, and seeing what time it was, and I was like, dang, I got another hour of this movie. And initially, that was, yeah, frustrating. And I do agree with you. I know this is still technically a bit of a negative. Movie could have been shorter, but man, did it hold my attention most of the time and keep me enthralled with the number of crazy, ridiculous things that happen along the way. Yeah, it certainly did. It certainly did. And yeah, the fact that it didn't wind up telling a story in maybe a more, I mean, overall straightforward, like you're saying, but the fact that it did do some unexpected things, I definitely really appreciate it. Man, yeah, okay, okay. Yeah, the acting, everybody knocked it out of the park. I like it when they're the people that feel as if they're not acting, and it's just like they're who they are, like you were talking about with some of the Osage actors. I think you're probably right in those regards, but I do appreciate feeling like a genuine personality. Um, Brendan Fraser, while initially did kind of like pop me out of the movie just because cameo appearance, yeah, he did wind up being an awesome character, and yeah. So, man, I also got to say, as far as people getting Oscar nominations, I don't care necessarily too much about that. I can see that happening. Here's the thing, though: while De Niro and Leonardo were good, I honestly got to be like, but these are the characters that they play. I've seen them play these characters time and time again. More so De Niro than Leonardo, but still, even with Leonardo, that doesn't necessarily take away that the performance still was like did allow me to be invested and submerged like into the world there. And so I don't know that I would want them to win just because it's like we've seen them do these kind of things before. But beyond that, like I'm saying, all the performances allowed me to like feel like I was present there in the movie at that time period, and that I wasn't just watching people act in a film being made. Yeah. So it's awesome. Well, all right. So I'll end there as far as my likes. Let me ask you this:
Yeah.
who do you think should go and check this film out? I know we spoiled everything, but like, who was this film for? Who do you think would genuinely love watching this film?
If you really connected with Ant-Man Quantumania, you're
Mm,
gonna love this movie.
that's right.
Um, if you watched Barbie and were like, man, more cowbell, then this is the film for you. If you watched the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and thought, I wish Leonardo DiCaprio was in this is the film for you. If you watched any episode of NCIS and thought, man, I really wish I really wish that I really wish that I don't know, man. If you love NCIS, you're gonna love this movie. If you love the Golden Girls, you're gonna love this movie. If you love MacGyver season 3, you're gonna love this movie.
Yeah.
If
Hmm.
you took out the trash last night, you're gonna love this movie. Uh,
Yeah.
if you had pizza in the last 90 days, you're gonna love this movie. Um, I mean, I think the question is, who
Mhm.
is this movie not
Yeah.
for?
If you can sneeze with your mouth closed, man, this is definitely your movie.
Man, if upon arriving at the airport in the airplane as it's descending, if your ears popped, got a movie for you.
Hmm.
Um,
I will say
ever
though,
worn a pair of
if
Converse?
you
Got a
do
movie for
like
you.
Goodfellas and Casino, this movie is some trash for you.
Okay. So, okay, in all seriousness, I was just wasting time giving fake answers. In all seriousness, this is another solid Scorsese movie. If you like historical dramas, period pieces, then this movie does a really good job of that. If you like movies that are slow burns, that don't give you everything right away, but give you enough to stay engaged, then this is a good movie to watch.
Hmm.
If yeah, if you really geek out on cinematography and production design and costume design, things like that, yeah, this is a good movie. And if you like any of the actors that are in the movie, everyone's giving stellar performances in this movie.
Hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, if you like, I mean, I would say like, if anybody likes classical movies, classical cinema, this has kind of that feel. because Scorsese's that kind of director, and those are his most early influences, and it comes through in all of his movies. This is not the most quick-paced Scorsese movie. I don't know which movie that would be. Maybe Goodfellas. I'm not sure. This is a slow burn. So I guess we could go into who this movie is not for. Um, if you
Yeah.
don't have 3 hours 30 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
this ain't the film for you.
No. Yeah,
Uh,
if you're just looking for a fun, stupid action movie with amazing effects and action sequences, it's not it. You're looking for a slasher movie or something like that? No. Um,
yeah,
it's not a musical.
no,
It's not. It's it's not a dancing movie. It's not a romantic movie. There is some love in there, and there's some romantic elements. No. Nope. This is not a rom com in the slightest.
yeah, yeah. I don't even think there's any like funny laugh moments in this movie. There might be like one like chuckle movie, but the film is not going for laughs
Yeah,
at all.
I'm gonna spoil
Like it's
one
it's
of the
telling
like
it's telling a
two.
story.
There was a moment where Ernest got angry and he was like, well, you can go suck a duck or something like that," and then people wound up laughing at that. But yeah,
Yeah. Um yeah, I mean, again, it really comes down to, can you sit down for like 3.5 hours? If you can do that, and if you like kind of slower moving movies, this if that's not your thing, then you're gonna have a hard time in this movie. There are some people that are gonna be better served watching this on Apple TV Plus, where they can pause it, they can come back to it, you know, they can do all of that because it's going to be on Apple TV Plus. Apple produced this movie, and so if that's the if you can only watch movies that long if you're at home, then yeah, this isn't a theater movie for you.
man, I would add a warning into that though. I feel like if you wind up pausing this movie and coming back, this movie's gonna seem way longer.
Yeah, you might not finish it. I was just thinking that. Like, yeah, you might not finish it. um, and like, I guess if you don't like Scorsese movies, then this isn't gonna change your mind. If like the whole thing about like not leaving anything on the cutting room floor, I got that idea listening to another podcast where they talk about it. Champagne Sharks. Big shout out to Champagne Sharks. Go give them a listen after you watch all of our episodes. And Trevor on Champagne Sharks, he's like, yeah, I feel like in every Scorsese movie, there's like a brilliant, perfect, flawless 2 hour movie inside, an over bloated Scorsese movie. If you have that feeling, like, man, this movie could have been a good hour shorter, a good 45 minutes shorter. You're definitely going to be feeling that in spades if you're watching this movie. So, yeah. Um, Scorsese is known for many things in his films. Brevity is not one of them. So just know that going in. And if that's a deal breaker for you, then yeah, this movie is not going to persuade you otherwise.
Yeah. Let's be honest. Like, if you have any idea with what Scorsese does in film, like you know what this movie's gonna be, pretty much. And you have a good idea what this movie's probably not gonna be. So
Yeah, Scorsese is one of those directors like Christopher Nolan or Quentin Tarantino. Heck, even Michael Bay. Like,
mhm.
if you come into a Michael Bay movie expecting, I don't know, expecting something
Yeah.
that's not. If you're expecting anything more than that from a Michael Bay movie, then the mistake is on you. Like that's your mistake.
Yeah.
Michael Bay makes very surface level popcorn movies. Um, Scorsese makes very deep, probing movies that run long.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, he's one of those directors. He has a very, I guess you would call it a style. Yeah, I mean that's Scorsese. So
I
yeah,
mean, in
I
the
mean,
very least, I think 95% of the time you walk out of his movies um haven't been entertained, but probably somewhat depressed.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I love Casino. Casino is one of my favorite movies. Yeah, Goodfellas, phenomenal movie. Those are probably my two favorite Scorsese movies. And so yeah, they're both kind of gangster flicks, and I like those movies. Um, yeah, Scorsese is kind of like Akira Kurosawa, just real slow burn, uh, a real slow burn cinematic experience. And he gives you a film that you can really sit with and think about critically and even deeply afterwards. Um, he doesn't make lighthearted movies. He makes he makes movies of substance. Um, yeah. So anyway,
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the strongest things that he does within these films. You left this film and into the next day thinking about it, thinking about what happened, thinking about things, thinking about the characters' motivations and decisions, and yeah, just really wrestling with the themes and the topics that were brought up. You know, it wasn't a film that
right.
that just left me imminently. I didn't even have any thought afterwards. Like, truly allowed me to take a moment and focus on the material and characters that he presented me with. So I appreciated that.
Yeah. So yeah, that pretty much sums up my review of this movie. Before we head out, is there anything else you'd like to add or say, or anything on your mind? Any final thoughts?
Nah, man, I think we got it. Mission accomplished.
Yeah, I
We
think
done
so too.
landed this plane.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So this has been another episode of the Super Cinema Bros.
Cinema Rose.
Stay tuned for more episodes.
More episodes.
Um, we are working. We are actively trying to get our backlog of episodes up and running.
Indeed.
So by the time you hear this, you'll have plenty of episodes to dig in.
Mhm.
If this wasn't a movie that you saw, we got plenty of other movies that are nothing like this movie. Um, in the future, we would love to take requests. You know, um,
Yeah.
buy me a coffee funded requests,
Mhm.
whether that be for a movie. Maybe you're a big artsy person, so maybe you know you may ask us to do a movie MUBI film review, or a Criterion collection,
Oh yeah.
or maybe a
Mhm.
Netflix series that you want us to watch,
Mm,
maybe an anime series on Crunchyroll.
yeah.
Like I
I'd
think I
love
think
to
we're,
chop
we're
it
we're
up
pretty open to a
sometime
lot of
about
things.
video games too. I know that's a little challenging, but we'll see.
Yeah. I don't play video games, but I can ask questions about the video games as somebody who's a non-participant. And so, yeah, we would have to examine the format of that. But again, we'll see what people are interested in and what people would like to see. But yeah, please stay tuned. Um, we're gonna figure out, you know, the best way that we can ask people to support us, so we can continue doing this and getting episodes out as soon as we can. We got Napoleon coming up. That movie's coming out as of the date of this recording. It's coming out the next day, so I'm curious to see that. It's another Ridley Scott movie.
Hmm. The Boy and
Uh,
the Heron. So
the
excited to
Boy
watch
and the Heron. Yeah, Hayao
it. Hmm.
Miyazaki.
Godzilla minus one. Those are probably my two most
Yeah.
anticipated ones coming out in the next couple weeks.
Yes. So Suzume, which is a movie that we did a review on several months ago, that just showed up on Crunchyroll. So I kind of watched through a little bit of that and was like, oh man, I think I like this movie the second time around better than the first.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, we got more stuff coming. And
Come on back.
as our audience grows, we will kind of figure out the best way to get commission reviews. And um, yeah, we want you guys to be engaged,
Yeah.
and we want you guys to be able to have a fun conversation, whether it's through live chat or whether it's through some other form or venue, maybe through a what do you call it?
Buy me a coffee.
Discord server.
Oh yeah, Discord.
Yeah, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And so yeah, in the meantime, those things are all coming up. Stay tuned for more reviews. We have fun having these conversations, and we look forward to inviting you into those conversations. So until next time, my name is Austin.
My name is Josiah.
This is the Super Cinema Bros podcast. Cinema Bros. God bless you guys.
Y'all.
We will catch you in the next one.
Catch you later.
Peace.